All right. Last but not least is our somewhat public-private partnership that we have in the city and plastered all over the walls here in this space, which is the DOT Public Space Program. And so I'm part of a unit that is charged in the Department of Transportation to empower you, New Yorkers, community groups, to reconceive of the streets, of the public right-of-way, building line to building line, as public space, as something more than just movement of vehicles, but a much more diverse movement of people walking, cycling, taking other forms of public transportation. And we have a whole range of programs to help do that. Weekend walks, which you see a photo of here, street seats, city bench, but the real bread and butter of our work is the Plaza program, which is an application-based program where we invite communities to come to us and tell us where they want to create public spaces out of underutilized streets. And just a quick distinction between the public space, which is the New York City Park, which everyone knows, and public plazas. So this is a photo, kind of an odd illustration of this, but it is Flatiron Plaza at 23rd Street on a very cold day in March, adjacent to Madison Square Park. And you can see that there are actually more people sitting in the plaza than in the park. And this is really important to illustrate the difference that we see between the role of parks in the city and the role of plazas in the city. Parks are places that you walk into, they facilitate respite and recreation, whereas public plazas are really part of the streetscape, and they're places that really satisfy our innate human need to watch each other and watch people and be part of the transportation of the city. And so I'm so glad that Diana really focused on systems, because we at DOT feel that these plaza spaces are incredibly important to the urban transportation system. There's also another strong distinction between a park and the plaza legally. New York City parks are a designated land use type and have a certain set of rules that is very different from the public right-of-way. And so there are some very obvious outcomes of that. One is parks are able to be closed at night, and plazas, the public right-of-way, is not. So you'll see fences around a lot of parks so that the enforcement of that closure can be in place. Again, you don't see that in any of our public plazas. So for us, when we are creating these public spaces, and especially considering how to pay for them with very limited resources, it's really trifold. There are the materials, there is the maintenance of the space, and there is the programming of the space. All three of these components are incredibly critical to successful public spaces and really need to be accounted for. And each is really impacts the way our different spaces look. And so over the past 7 years, we've really refined our process to create these public spaces to make sure that they're successful. And we have basically 3 rungs on the ladder to get to public plazas. One is a one-day plaza event. And this is really, for us, a very quick way to test out a public space, see if it would work, but also test our partner. Make sure that the community group that is willing to take on the maintenance and programming of this space, making sure that they actually have the capacity to do that. And it very much convinces a lot of the naysayers, community boards, civic organizations that this space is potentially a good idea. And so there are certain, very physical ramifications of a space like this. We keep the asphalt the same, really just a few temporary materials are brought in, and the majority of the public space in the roadway is really about events and programming. The second rung is the temporary materials plaza. So this is a public space where we've received support from the community board. We have a maintenance partner that we trust, and they're willing to sign a maintenance agreement with us to take care of the space and program it. This is a space that goes in very quickly. We can install these in about a week, and we pay for these with DOT's expense budget. So we have an overall budget to maintain the streets throughout the city, and so this is just another one of our streets, but instead of being managed for vehicles, it's being managed for pedestrians. We get a lot of comments about how these spaces look, the design of these spaces. And a big part of it has to do with how it's being paid for. Because we're using our expense budget, because there are not, that basically lowers the hurdle for approvals for the city for us to buy these materials. We also have to purchase all of these materials in a very large bulk order. So we're very limited to kind of the diversity that we can bring to each of the different neighborhood plazas. But our ultimate goal is to get to a fully reconstructed plaza where it's designed very specifically for that neighborhood, designed to meet the maintenance capacity of the partner, designed to meet the kinds of programming that we've been seeing in the temporary material condition, and also designed to be able to be a greater asset to the city in terms of water management, shade, things like that. And so once you kind of get to that level of plaza, it actually takes a tremendous amount of resources from our non-for-profit partners. So we offer 3 different ways for them to actually generate revenue on the site that they can then put back into the maintenance of the space. So the first is a subconcession. We can actually have a concession agreement with a nonprofit partner where we allow them to subconcession out public property to basically get income. And again, all of that income goes back into the maintenance of the space. So it kind of funnels back into the larger public good. So this is just an example of Albee Plaza in Brooklyn. We see a lot of food concessions, but really it's up to each individual neighborhood to figure out, what they want and what the neighborhood wants. Another revenue opportunity is limited sponsorship. So either having Yahoo sponsor free Wi-Fi in Times Square, to having local retailers or even individuals sponsor the maintenance of plants, benches, things like that. And then the last option is commercial events. This is something actually that really is only viable for our largest plazas like Times Square, Flatiron, Meatpacking District, neighborhoods where there's a tremendous amount of pedestrian flow, because these companies need to pay the city money to hold this commercial event in this space, and therefore they also pay our maintenance partner a fee, and those fees are really, really high, so they tend to only make economic sense in areas where you have a whole lot of people. And this is really something that also very much blurs the lines between public and private. So legally, any event in any public space, which is still street, still public right of way, must not be exclusive. So there must always be opportunity for the public to engage in the space. And as you can see in some of these photos, it's really hard to try to walk around a giant ocean spray bottle or things like that. So this is an issue that is really coming into play right now. And again, we have a lot of plaza partners who would like to basically have more control over their space to be able to keep it for neighborhood uses versus these larger commercial events. And I'll just end with this, a little bit of a look at where we are now. We have 65 plazas that are currently somewhere in planning, design, or construction throughout the entire 5 boroughs. And of those, about half of them have a capital track where we're actually using city funding to totally reconstruct them. And this is a bit of a breakdown in terms of what that funding is and where it comes from. And actually, the first third there is from our program. It's city dollars that is allocated to our Plaza program each year, but we've been able to leverage a tremendous amount of resources. And again, I think it's through the process, through easing people through the implementation of a space, and then also slowly building partners and galvanizing more and more support for these spaces as they develop. And so we have almost close to half of our money is also city funded, but it's through other sources, mostly Reso A funding, which is council members, things like that. Some federal funding, small sliver of state funding, and also a small sliver of private funding, which again, local groups have really been able to attract private donors to see that these spaces are really valuable for their communities.